Hello, welcome back to Grow New Plants. So I did the video of installing the front wall on this greenhouse the other day, and I left off installing the front door on it. I didn't figure anyone would want to see that part, and then first thing I get is a comment from one of my subscribers saying that they watched the whole video and were upset that I didn't install the front door. So Jill, this is for you. I'm going to install the front door onto the greenhouse. And if you're wanting to learn how, this is a Larson door. If you're wanting to learn how to install a Larson, it doesn't have to be on the greenhouse. It could be on your front door, your house, or whatever. It's all the same. I just framed this opening out just like it would be onto a front door. So let's get started and we'll get it installed. Okay, so the first thing you need to do this thing is you got to mount this bar right here. And this is the one that has the hinges mounted on it. And you got to make sure you mount this bar. I'm doing a right hinge door that's going to open out, obviously. So this is how this thing is going to mount in here. Okay, and then I'm going to put a screw in here in just a second to set this thing. But you got to make sure you got this mounted onto the door hinges correctly, or your door will be backwards or upside down. And they tell you to lay it the inside of the door up and start at the top of the hinges on the door. But I kind of started getting confused with it, like figuring if it's laying here, it's going to come up this way or whatever. So just to make it simple, what I decided to do, this thing's going to mount just like this. That'll be the permanent mount. So I'm just going to put a piece of tape here and a piece of tape here. And that way I'll know I have this thing mounted right. So I'm going to lay this back down on my work table and we'll start mounting everything. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is we take our rail that's got the hinges mounted onto it. And you put it on there just like it's going to go. And you take it and you slide it all the way to the top of your door frame. And make sure it's pressed tight this way and pressed tight that way. Slid all the way to the top of the door frame. And you got this little keyhole thing. You got a big hole here, and that's just for the screw to come back out. It's actually going to mount. So what they suggest, press this all the way to the top and then make a mark right in the center of this hole over here, the little slot hole. Okay, so then you pull your door frame back down and you take a 1/8 inch drill and then you just pre-drill that little hole. Okay, then you back into that hole, you take one of the painted screws and you just set that screw in there. And you don't screw it in all the way, leave it about 1/8 of an inch away. Don't screw it all the way down. And what that'll do is now you can take this screw, run it through the big hole, and then and that'll leave you about a 1/16 to 1/8 of an inch gap up at the top. Okay, so that's basically, you take this, and then once you mount your door frame on, or your door onto the hinges, this gives you something to sit it, to hold it on, and then you come back and put the other ones in. So okay, so now we got our door laid out here. This is the inside of my door, and I know that because that's where my latches are to lift the door up and down, so I know that's the inside. This is the top of the door where the window's at the top. So, and I know my piece of tape is right down here. I just looked at it when I laid it down. My piece of tape is right here. So I have this piece, my piece of tape's here, so I know this thing's lined out right. That way it just eliminates any confusion, at least for me. So this thing is going to mount basically just like this on here. So then we just want to come in here and start mounting these hinges. So I'm going to come in a little bit closer and show you what they're showing the first step is for mounting these hinges. Okay, so we're all set up ready to go now. I can take my piece of tape off if I need to. So what we want to do is we want to mount this thing. The hinges are going to mount right here. And see if what they've done. I don't know why they didn't pre-drill all the screws, but they took this first screw right here. I'm sorry, the second screw. There's one here and one here. And so what you want to do is you want to take out this second screw, and then you don't need that screw anymore. And you take one of the 1-inch painted screws, and that's going to be what you replace that with. So you take the first hinge, the first hole in the first hinge, and then you're going to put that screw back in that hole that we just took the other screw out of. It'd be helpful if I had another set of hands here. Let me slide this back on my table a little. There we go. me a little something to hold that up. Okay, so we just take that screw, that one goes right in there. Okay, so from this point, make sure all your hinges are up down the way. So from this point, what we want to do is we're going to come down and we're going to pre-drill with a 1/8 inch bit for the rest of these holes. And all that did, that just lined everything up. So we're going to pre-drill a hole, run another unpainted screw through all the way down. Another thing I want to show you too is make sure that all your hinges, you don't want your hinge to be like that, then you won't be able to get it out once you start screwing them on there. So make sure you take all your hinges and flip them over this way, all the way down. Then you press that thing up in there. So I'll just press my hinge in there, and then I'll come in here, pre-drill my hole. And put another one of my painted screws in there. So I'm going to do that all the way down for all 4 hinges. So it should use 8 screws. They gave me 9 unpainted screws, so I'm assuming they gave you 1 extra one. So okay, so you should be ready now. We got the hinges on here. So at this point, we should be ready to hang it onto the door frame. First thing you got to do though, you got to put this little extender. So this is my right side. So I get the little extender that says the R on it for the right side. And this thing is I kind of played with it already. It's a little bit tricky, but you just kind of got to finagle it and work it till you get it sliding on there. There it goes right there. So it just slides up and down. So put it on there, slide it all the way up, and then when you get done, once you get it mounted, then you'll slide this back down where it goes all the way to your threshold. So we're ready to hang it up now. Okay, so now I got my door, and here's my screw, my initial screw that I'm going to hang this little keyhole on. So this is probably going to be kind of tricky. This door is pretty heavy. So I need to get this thing over here where I can get it up, and then to get that screw head. Oh, that wasn't so bad. Okay, so now I went it through the big hole and then got it lined up on the little hole and just let it sit on that. So that will hold the door in place. So the next thing we want to do is come down and mount these screws the rest of the way down on this door frame. So I'll reset up and we'll do that. Okay, so now we want to come down to our second hinge from the bottom is what it says. And I'm just reaching around. If you don't have 2 hands, get someone to hold it from the outside. Basically, you just want it snugged up good on that corner. Then I'm going to pre-drill that hole. Get my screw started. And then run that screw in there. Okay, so now my frame ought to be pretty sturdy. So the next thing, I'll go ahead and do one more without moving the camera. So basically, all I gotta do now is just pre-drill and install all these screws up and down this frame. And so that one is not going to hang anymore, so I'm not going to go in the center. I'm going to go towards the top of that hole now. Doesn't help, I got wind out here today. You can do this with 1 person, obviously I'm doing it, but it'd be better with 2. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and fill in the rest of these screws, and then the door will be actually mounted on the frame. We'll move on from there. Okay, one last thing too. Once we got this hinge rail mounted on here, then you're just supposed to take this little plate here and just push it down till it's firm on your threshold. So it's touching my threshold right here, so that'll be good there. So we're ready to screw the screws on the outside of the frame now. Okay, so now I've just got to put in the screws on the outside of the frame here. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these up here. So I'll just put these 2 in, then I'll do the other ones off camera. The same thing, just pre-drill your holes. Pre-drill with an 1/8 inch. I think everything's pre-drilled with an 1/8 inch. I think all the screws in this thing are the same, other than the one that goes to the threshold. So let me just run the screws in there. Just want to be careful if you're using a drill too, that you don't over tighten them with the drill. Okay, so I'll put the rest of these in, and then we'll mount the threshold next. I'm sorry, we'll do the rail on the other side next. Okay, the next step is to put the drip rail on. And basically, you just slide the drip rail in there like it's going to go on the door. And it wants to go above the hinge rail over here. And then push your door shut. And you just kind of want to line this thing up to match your door frame. So like right here, I'm looking at how big my gap is here. So I want to get it pretty close on the other side. So that's pretty close there. So I'm going to go ahead and pre-drill this hole. Okay. I'm not going to tighten that all the way down yet till I get the whole thing right. Okay, so now I just want to come down here. Let me go ahead and get my drill bit back in this one. Okay, so I want to look at that one, and just going to kind of eye it in where it looks, that gap looks the same as it does down here. That looks pretty close. I'm going to go ahead and pre-drill that one. Okay, so there is my drip guard. I'll just sink that last screw in there real quick. Okay, so now I'm ready to put my latch guard on, or my latch rail on the other side. Okay, so the first thing, I'm hand holding my camera here, sorry. Okay, so the first thing you want to do, you want to take your latch rail here and slide it in up against your frame. And then you want to take it and slide it all the way where it touches that right there. Okay, then we're going to come back down to the bottom. Okay, and the other thing before you start mounting this rail too that I forgot about, you got to put this extender on here, just like we did on the other side. Like I said, these things are kind of tricky getting on there. Got that on there, so we'll just sit this back inside the rail. And then just kind of hold your door shut. Okay, so we got that back on, and make sure that slid all the way up to the top. And then I've kind of looked at my door, and my door is just a little bit more narrow at the bottom. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my bottom screw in first. I want to make sure that frame is up and then all the way over. And I'll pre-drill that hole. And then reline that back up. Okay, so that's where I need it to be. Back into my pre-drilled hole. there are no holes inside this. All the screws that hold this rail on the outside. Okay, so now we're ready to put our second screw in here. So I just want to pull this thing up snug here. Pre-drill that hole. And then drill some screws in there. Okay, I got 2 more screws. I'll do those off camera real quick. Okay, so the next thing I need to do is I need to put this threshold on the bottom. And it just slides. It doesn't slide real easy, but it slides up on there. And it goes from end to end. And that's the biggest problem with it right there, is you got to get it past this. I'm sorry. You got to get it past this frame over this side here. There we go. So you get it centered. That's pretty much it right there. Okay, so now we're going to move inside the greenhouse. Okay, so once we get inside here, you want to take this threshold and just slide it down. Make sure your door is closed all the way, and slide it down to where the rubber piece touches the floor. Okay, and then you want to take a 3/32 drill bit, and then you got to drill through here. Now the thing you got to be careful with is you want to make sure you don't drill through all the way through the door. So you just want to drill through the first piece of metal with this one. And then the other thing I want to do here is I want to drill down towards the bottom, and that way this is just touching. So once I drill through the bottom, I can push it down a little bit farther where this thing will make a tighter contact, basically. So let's see if I can drill this thing without pushing the door open. So I want to drill in the bottom part of my slot. Okay. Do the same thing on the other side. Okay. And then I'm going to put these screws in by hand because that's a pretty soft material. Okay, I'm sorry, I lost footage on this. So I was at this point here. I had these screws, both of these screws in. And when I put it in initially, this thing was slid up all the way. So I put the screws in at the bottom, and then I open it up a little bit, and then I slide this thing down. And that makes this thing drag on the bottom. So you want that all the way down when you snug them back down the second time. That just gives you that extra 1/8 of an inch or so for these things to use that little extra where this thing will bend. I don't know whether you can hear it or not when it comes shut. You can hear it dragging on there now. So that just gives you a better seal on the bottom. Okay, so we're ready to put the oh, I never did slide that down either. That's my little extender for the left side. I'll slide that down and then we'll come and put the latch on. Okay, so the next step is to attach our door latch. In this particular door, you got to drill the holes out for it. So what they give you this little template, and you just take this template, you fold it over to the side of the door. I'm gonna keep my tape back. I went ahead and put some tape over this. So you fold this, and this would be good for the handle. It's somewhere close to the middle of the bottom window. So you fold that down like that. So you put this right on the edge of the door and just put that flat. Right there, and then you just drill these 3 holes out with a 5/16 drill. So I'll go get my drill and we'll drill those out. And obviously you want to be sure you drill these as straight as you possibly can. So Okay, so now we just pull this back off. And we got our 3 holes drilled. So I'll go get the hardware and we'll start mounting the hardware. Okay, so now I got my outside handle with the button in here. So just insert the button down in there. And then I got, this is the little mechanism that turns the lock, and then the little spring that holds it in place. So what I want to do is I'm going to put my handle on the outside and then run my latch, run that little key through there till that matches up. And that's pushing the button there so the button works. So now I just need to see if I can hold this all together long enough to get 2 screws in it to hold it in place. That button, that spring didn't. Okay, I got 1 screw started in there. I'll get the other one started, then I'll make sure it's all lined up good. You can kind of see this from the back side if you got those screws lined up where they need to be. Okay, I've hit the bottom one. Over here where I can see the other side good. So that works. Push the button on the other side. So I snug those 2 screws down good. That was pretty easy, easier than what I thought it was going to be. Well, I tighten that up. Yeah, you don't want to over tighten those screws. I guess it compresses it too much, and then the spring doesn't work anymore. There you go, that's perfect there. So you might have to do some adjusting on that. So we'll move back inside and put the door latch on. So what I'm going to do is I went and got a board, just cut a little block of wood, and I'm just going to screw this on here. So about right there. That one cracked a little bit, but it's fine. It's not going anywhere. Okay, so now I can go back and do my latch like I normally would have. So I'll pull my latch in here. I'll get my drill set up, because I'm going to pre-drill the holes for that thing too. So I'm going to get this thing pulled snug, and I have shims. There's shims for this, so you can do some adjusting on it. And I'm going to shoot for the middle of the latch. So I'll put my screw, if you see right here, I'm going to set my screw in the center, that way I've got some fudge room to maneuver it around. If the door shape moves or something like that, I've got some room to make some adjustments on it. So I'm just going to put it where it's perfect to begin with, and then I'll put my so that's good right there. So I'll come in there and I'll drill my first hole right in the middle of that little slot. And that's actually going to go, that screw's long enough, it's going to go into the 2x4 too, so it ought to be pretty solid. Alright, so just tack that up like that to see if it works alright. Okay, so there's a little hole right here. I'm just going to pre-drill that. Again, you want to be careful. You don't want to go all the way through the door with this one. Just enough to get your screw started. And you got a little black screw. It helps hold that handle down. Okay. Okay, so the next thing to do, we're going to mount the door closer on here. So what it's saying to do is to put this washer, they call it a close washer, and that's the thing that helps hold it open. Like once you open the door and you want to hold it open, you put that on there. Then take something and stick it through that hole and pull it out. You want to pull it out, it says a 1/4 of an inch. It's hard to do with no hands. So get it out about a 1/4 of an inch and then lock it down. It doesn't, I think they just don't want it closed all the way while you're doing the mount. Okay, so now the next thing I want to do is to mount this bracket, and it says on there towards a storm door, so that needs to point towards the door. This thing says with a single closer, which is what this door came with, that it wants to be mounted mid-door just under the glass. If you got 2 closers, put one at the top, one at the bottom, but if only one, you put it in the middle of the door basically. So it doesn't have to be anywhere exact. And it says in the instructions a 1/4 inch off of the door jamb, so I'm just going to eye that thing in there. I'll go right here. I'm just going to eye a 1/4 inch, and I'll pre-drill one hole. And then I'll go ahead and set a screw for the other one. I'll set that one screw and then I'll come back and put the others in off of that. So towards the storm door, there's my first screw. So from there, I'll come back and I'll mark all my other holes. Off just a little. Okay, so take that one back out and drill the other holes. Okay, so I got that mounted. So let's get the I think actually the next thing to do was to go ahead and put this on, and I'm not sure, oh well, that thing spins around so it doesn't make any difference. I'll put that in there, put my pin in, so then we'll move over here and we'll mount the piece onto the door. Okay, so the next part, I've got the door closed again now. I'm gonna go in here and I'll latch this thing down. I'm going to latch it on the inside one. That way I have more adjustment. And then basically, it said put a level on it. I'm just going to eye it. So that looks pretty good right there. I'm going to come right in the middle where I have adjustments. Pre-drill one screw. I'll be very careful. I don't have my screwdriver with me, but I'm going to be very careful not to over tighten this screw. So line that up. Okay. This thing all still looks good and straight. I got that lined up. Just to make it easier, I'll pull that out and I'll go back in the middle here. That way I got more room for adjustment if I need to. Put my pin back in here. And now we have a mounted closer. So let's see if it works. And there's an adjustment screw in here so you can adjust it, how fast it closes. Well, that's it. I have my storm door mounted onto my greenhouse. And the other thing I can show you on here too, so when I want ventilation into the greenhouse, I'll have this door where I can just lift the screen up or lift the glass up. I got the screen on the bottom, and then I'm gonna have a window at the other end. So anyway, it took me a lot longer than it probably should have, but it takes longer when I'm filming. But anyway, that's how you install a storm door onto a greenhouse or onto the front of a house, however you want to do it. I appreciate you watching. If you just came and watched the storm door and you want to see my greenhouse videos, there will be a link down in the description for this whole series of the greenhouse build. I'm filming the whole thing from start to finish, and I appreciate you watching. Please like, please subscribe.